And here is the Writer's Almanac for Wednesday. It's the 9th of October, 2019. It's the birthday of the historian Bruce Catton, born in Petoskey, Michigan, 1899, best known for his histories of the Civil War, including A Stillness at Appomattox. The first mail-order catalog was delivered on this day, 1872, sent out by Aaron Montgomery Ward, one page long, 162 items. In about 10 years, the catalog had grown to be 200 pages, 10,000 items, which let people in rural areas get their hands on anything that city people could buy: furniture, books, clothes, jewelry, musical instruments. 1967, on this day, Che Guevara was executed by Bolivian military forces, and a photograph taken of Che Guevara a few years before became the most reproduced photograph in the world. It's the birthday of John Lennon, born Liverpool, 1940. His parents separated when he was an infant. His mother came in and out of his life. He was raised by his aunt and his uncle. But his mother taught him to play the banjo, and they listened to rock and roll together. When he was 16, he started a band called the Quarrymen. They played at a church fundraiser, and a young Paul McCartney heard them, introduced himself, became part of the band. They began writing songs together. And when John Lennon's mother died in a car crash a year later, he and Paul became even closer. Paul's mother had died from cancer 2 years before. In 1960, the Quarrymen changed their name to the Silver Beatles, and soon just the Beatles, and became a sensation first in the UK and then Europe and the United States. The Beatles broke up. John Lennon became a solo and performed also with his wife Yoko Ono. In 1975, when his son Sean was born, he retired from performing for 5 years, staying home with his family. In November of 1980, he and Yoko Ono released an album called Double Fantasy and considered going on the road again. But on December 8, 1980, he was shot and killed outside his apartment on 72nd Street in New York by a 25-year-old man named Mark David Chapman. A few days later, a crowd of more than 100,000 people gathered in Central Park and observed 10 minutes of silence in his memory. Here's a poem by Linda Paston with a quote from the Earth Easy blog. When a bee enters the plant's electric field, a small electric charge develops. A poem entitled Sex Education. I remember what happened the day we met. Electricity, they call it, a spark, like the one that went from God's finger to Adam's in the Sistine Chapel. I always thought it was a metaphor, but now I read that bees are led to pollen by a flower's electric force field, not just by seductive reds and purples. I remember how you looked at me, how I looked back, and spreading through my limbs a sweetness like honey. A poem by Linda Paston entitled Sex Education from her book Insomnia, published by W.W. Norton and used by permission here on the Writer's Almanac. That's the Writer's Almanac for October the 9th, 2019. Be well, do good work, and keep in touch.